Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here with Jeff Miller, who is a familiar face to many of you who have been watching our videos. Jeff is our travel law columnist. He writes a regular column for us, and he and I have been associated for a long time, and he's been my travel attorney for quite some time. And we're going to talk to him about yet another issue involving and the effects of the pandemic on this as well. Car rentals, and what are some of the things that you have to be cognizant of when you advise your clients about booking a car rental. And you're going to find out about all this and more on Insider Travel Report. Now, first of all, Jeff, how are you and where are you right now?
I'm good, and I'm actually in Maryland at home.
Yeah, you keep switching between Florida and Maryland. We can't keep track of you. And actually then out in the West Coast sometimes. So
Correct. We're going out to LA next week, and we were in Seattle for Mother's Day.
There you go. You're traveling around. Yeah, we had a whole discussion about airlines, and we could have probably another one on those. Believe me, after all that's going on. But we're here to talk about car rentals now. And now that we're all starting to rent cars, and you are too, as we get back to traveling, as we emerge from the pandemic, and of course, as we noted, some of us never really stopped traveling. First of all, why are car rental rates so high these days? Is there a lack of supply? What's going on? Because I remember early in the pandemic, they were very low. And all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but in the last few months, they've really risen.
The car rental companies dumped almost 50% of their fleet industry-wide during the pandemic, looking for dollars, of course. Mm-hmm. And then when they wanted to restock, there's a tremendous non-supply of new automobiles. Apparently the semiconductors, which are used in the cars and other parts, are way behind. I just saw an article that said the new car supply in the country is 21 days. It's normally 40.
Yeah, so there's fewer cars and they can't get them, right?
They can't get them. They can't replace their fleets. That's the problem. They have them on order, but who knows exactly when they're going to get in. And keep in mind that their fleet sales are lower profit than what goes to the dealers because they're sold as fleet. So I'm sure they're not at the top of the priority list.
Well, other than that pretty major effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, what else has happened? What other changes have happened because of the pandemic on the car rental process, if any?
Well, once you know that may not be a car available, people start to panic. And that's where a travel advisor can be very useful. But you go to book a car and you're either told it's $500 a day or $400 a day, or I saw an article in Hawaii, they were renting trucks, U-Haul trucks to get around. So you start to panic, and that affects an entire vacation.
Right.
Particularly if you're going to a place where it's not a destination where you're just going to stay in one place. So that starts to affect the entire travel industry, particularly the leisure side of it.
No, absolutely. That it is going to make a huge difference. Now, let's talk about that. How can travel advisors really find the best deals for their clients in car rentals? Is it really important these days to reserve, to reserve a car in advance, right?
Yes, you should reserve a car as far in advance as possible. Of course, you get a confirmed reservation with it. And a travel advisor should always use their preferred suppliers from their consortium, their co-op, their franchise, whatever it happens to be. Because at least if there's issues or you really need a favor, you got somebody to turn to. If you're not doing that, and of course you're not also generating additional sales for your agency and additional revenue. It's very important for a travel advisor to recommend and use and book through a preferred supplier.
Oh, absolutely, and that's a good major advice. Now, what if you get to a location and you've rented that car, and the car rental company doesn't have the vehicle you've reserved because of these shortages when you get to the location? What's your recourse, if any?
Well, that's a real problem, and that's also happened to me on 2 occasions. But your recourse is, and people don't like to hear lawyers, of course, but when you rent the car and you get a confirmation, that's a contract. You show up and there's no car available, or not even the car you wanted, but no car, you have several options, but none of them are good. Right. One is to try to rent from somebody else if there's available. It depends where you are. Probably none available if your company didn't have any. Your next option is to use Uber or some system like that. Try to make alternative arrangements. But all of what you spend at that point can be charged back to the car rental company under a breach of contract. Now, people don't like lawyers, but you pay your $30 in Maryland, for example, and file in small claims court, it's an open and shut case. Once you file the case, the car rental company is going to pay you. It's a breach of contract. Unfortunately, it can ruin a vacation. Again, I've had that happen to me, so I mean, I know how that feeling is. And this was before COVID, so it was when they had cars.
Right.
It happened to be Christmas time in Florida, where they oversell.
Yeah, well, that's a challenge, and it's nice at least you have the recourse. It's still going to ruin your transportation if you can't get that car, or I guess they could offer you an alternative. Sometimes they can upgrade you, which is do you have the
I'm
right?
going on these. Yeah, they can upgrade you at no charge, but I'm going on the assumption, which happened to me, there were no cars.
Okay, got it.
There were no cars available. They had oversold. Their system didn't cut it off.
You couldn't even get the SUV or the giant car you really never wanted, or the minivan, right?
Right, but normally almost any company, I don't know about some of the really small car rental companies, but any of the major companies, if they don't have the car you reserved, they'll upgrade you at no charge.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what they should do. Now, many car rental companies, and when you get to that counter, they try to upsell you, the customer, at the rental location. What's your best advice about that? Should you take that offer, even if it's going to be a little more money? And of course, from the travel advisor perspective, what happens to that reservation that may have originally been booked by a travel advisor? I know in the old days there was an issue once. They said that it would kind of eliminate the booking, and the travel advisor didn't get credit. I thought that issue had been taken care of, but I'm not sure if it has.
Okay, first of all, keep in mind that the person trying to upsell you is getting a commission for that. Sometimes the commission is individual, sometimes it's by shift, so it varies by car rental company, but they're trying to upsell you to get a commission. The more they sell you, the more money they make.
Right.
That's the thing to keep in the back of your mind. And what the consumer should do is turn everything down.
Really?
And I know of some experiences where the agent did not get the commission because of the way that the person doing the upselling hit the reservation.
Right, right.
But generally, the companies, there's no corporation that would want them to do that because they have to survive with the travel industry, travel advisor community. But you're dealing with an individual person. Maybe they were so happy to get the sale, they just booked it that way, and all of a sudden the agent is gone.
Absolutely. No, that's the challenge. Again, it looks good. Then they tell you, oh, it's only $10 more a day to get, X vehicle. And sometimes you go for it. And you're
that,
saying,
or the gas, or the personal accident insurance, or the loss damage.
Well, that's what we are going to talk about, that, because that is the next thing. And that's a huge issue. What about all those extra charges, in particular, the insurance coverage? Many of us, I think, got used to using our own auto insurance. I do it, and they said, do you have, you want to take this coverage? And they're usually pretty persistent that, we're not sure that's going to work. But if you use your own insurance instead of incurring the extra charges, like for collision damage waiver, that's CDW, or loss damage waiver, LDW, is it still advisable to use your own insurance, or should you get their insurance?
Well, that's all personal. Most insurance companies, insurance is state regulated, but most states, the policies for 30 or 45 days will cover you on a temporary rental, personal policy. Some people will say, well, if I have an accident, I don't want it on my personal policy. I mean, that's the one view.
Right.
My view is, why pay $25 or $26 a day for loss damage waiver? In my case, sometimes I have a rate that's equal to that, and they want that much more to pay for the loss damage waiver, not counting the other upsells they're going to do. So that's personal. My personal view would be, don't take that coverage. It's very expensive. It can add hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, because it is usually per day, and if you're going for, say, a 7-day rental, it can add on to as much as several $100s to your bill, right? Yes,
and again, I would never recommend that to a friend or a client or anybody, but people do it. And of course, if you get somebody who's persistent in the upsell, that's sometimes that's happened. You're at the counter, you're hassled, you want the car. Oh, we'll give you a convertible for $10 a day more. And by the way, you need the loss damage waiver, which is $24.97 a day.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what is the difference between CDW and LDW, or is that the same thing?
They're the same thing depending on the company.
Okay, it's just the same. It's the same terminology.
But keep in mind that most of the big car rental companies self-insure for body damage. Nobody self-insures for liability. So body damage, the maximum liability is the car's destroyed. Liability, of course, is injuries. So when they're charging you a fee, they don't have insurance to cover that. They're going to eat that out of their own pockets. But it's such a huge profit center, that's not a problem. because they may charge you $750 to fix something that costs them $100.
Now, in terms of this extra added insurance coverage they're offering, is this really just another way for the car rental companies to make money? Does this go straight to their bottom line, or is it held in escrow or something?
Goes straight to their bottom line unless you have an accident.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, it's a bottom line. It's a line item. It goes right to the bottom line. It's pure profit, which is why they may pay a commission of 10 or 20 or 30% to the person who upsells.
Got it. Now, let's go to one of those other extra charges, and I've done this. They say, should you pay for a full tank of gas or not? And how much can that add to the cost of a car rental? I know, in general, the two reasons I usually use it is if I've got a whole week, and I know I'm probably going to go through, a tank of gas. And sometimes, and I got to check this because you're not sure, the cost per gallon is actually sometimes less, sometimes more. So you're going to have to weigh that all thing. If I'm just going for a day, no, I usually don't do it. The other thing is, if I know an airport that is, I can't find a gas station close by, and I have some of those, I think, Orlando's tough to find a gas station in places unless you really know where you're looking. But what would you advise? Should you go for that extra tank of gas, pay for that tank of gas?
I generally would not advise that.
Okay.
And the reason being, again, it depends where you are. Is it a one-day rental? Is it a 5-day rental? Do you know the airport area? Are there gas stations around? But you're going to pay a lot more for that because the tank may have 20 gallons in it or 18 gallons, and I'm only using 5. Well, I just paid an extra $30 or $40 for that rental because I took the whole tank of gas. And they tell you to bring it back on empty, but nobody's going to bring it back on the fumes. You don't want to run out on the interstate, a mile from the airport. Yeah,
no, you don't want that Seinfeld episode where they're just trying to keep going with the gasoline. I'm gonna burn through this gas because I paid for it, right?
Yes, and that's the upsell that this is so convenient that when they try to sell you that at the counter, that's the reason it's so convenient to do that. But it's another add-on expense. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it is. It is. I do it sometimes, but again, it's a calculation of how much driving I'm doing, and do I really want to make sure I'm going to get that gas and return with a full tank. Now,
and in Orlando, when you leave the airport, you go 1 mile on the main drag into the airport. There's a Wawa with cheap gas.
There you go. I should have talked to you before. Next time, now I know. Now I know. So I should scope. We should have like an app to find the gasoline stations around an airport. That's probably what I need to do. Now, let's talk a little bit about what happens. What happens if the car that you're driving, the rental car that you're driving, is damaged while you're driving? What should you do? What should you tell the car rental company? How quickly? And does the coverage that you have and your own auto insurance, or the one you've purchased, really do cover everything? God forbid this happens, but I know people it has happened to. And it depends on the kind of damage. Maybe it's slight damage, or maybe it's major.
Well, any damage for this personal injury, you should immediately report it at the scene. I would call first 911 and then call the car rental company on the emergency number. Particularly if the car is disabled, somebody's been hurt. But you have a scratch on the side, the bumper gets dented, there's a dent on the door. You wait till you get back to the lot. So
that's it. And then, one of the things, and I have a case myself of this, is when you return a car, what are the things you must do to make sure you don't incur any additional charges, or maybe get charged for damage you didn't do? Should you make, let's say, so it's damage you didn't do, you're not aware of it. Most of us go to a car rental location, we're racing for the airport, we're not thinking. The guy does a once over, and then and gives you the receipt, and after that, maybe they find some damage. Should you make sure you get that final receipt, and is that good enough to show later on to say there was no damage to the car according to the car rental company?
Yes, but let me back up. When you take the car out, you need to walk around it.
Okay, got it.
And make sure there's no damage. If there's damage, you just report it. They put it right onto the computer, and you get a copy of it.
Right.
But once I turn in a car rental, I give them the keys, and they give me a receipt. They can pound sand. Legally, they have no right to come back after you for any damage. Now, right. I'm not saying they don't try to do that, but that's something that you can test on a credit card and win, because the rental is over when you turn it in, and they have an obligation to tell you what damage, if any, they're alleging. So I give them the keys, I get a receipt, it's over. The rental has been concluded. So 3 days later, they call and say, oh, we noticed that the whole back end is banged in. That's not my problem. Now, they try to put it on your credit card, you've got to contest it. They have no legal right to collect it.
No, that's good. Good to know, because I do know of cases where they came back and said damage had been created. The problem is, at that point, I'd lost the receipt. I didn't have it with me anymore, so I couldn't exactly contest it. But that's another case. You just keep your receipts, and hopefully, and sometimes they'll send them to you by email.
If it's a corporate account, or if you're a member of their frequent traveler program, you'll get a copy by email. It's pretty routine.
Got it.
They don't want to give you paper.
Now, what are the advantages? Let's go to that. What are the advantages, first, of being part of a frequent renter program? Is there any disadvantage to joining more than one frequent renter program? And should I join all my favorite car rental companies, whether it's Enterprise or Hertz or Avis or whatever?
You join them all because you avoid the counter. I can't tell you how many times I've flown into Fort Lauderdale and see a line of 25 or 30 people at a counter,
right?
Whatever the car rental company is, when you could get on a bus, go to the lot, and avoid that. And it's usually, most of them are free. Some waive it depending on your group, but generally there's no charge to sign up for these.
Right.
The key is that you avoid the counter. Forget the fact that you may earn a free rental day after 10 rentals or 8 rentals. That's not important. The important is your time. You're not standing in line with other people waiting to get into a vehicle before you can even get to the bus to get to the car. So that's the major advantage of the frequent renter program.
No, and you can as an individual, if you are, let's talk about renting corporate rates. What are the advantages of renting using a corporate rate versus a published rate, or renting using maybe a AAA or an AARP rate?
Well, there's lots and lots of advantages. Keeping in mind that most corporate rates allow personal use. In other words, if I work for a corporation that has a corporate rate with one of the big major car rental companies, that contract's going to allow me to use that rate for personal use.
So that you can use that corporate rate for personal use.
I've never seen a contract where you couldn't do that, because it's based on volume. So the more volume you get, the better, more lucrative that contract is to the car rental company, and the better deal the corporation is going to negotiate the following year. So that's very important. But more importantly, most of the corporate deals include loss damage waiver. It's free.
Oh, okay. The ones we talked about.
They include second driver or third driver free, which the companies will charge you for. Now, somebody told me if you rent through Costco or AAA, you get the second driver free. I don't know if that's true because I've never done that, but that's one of the promotions that they have with the car rental companies. If you don't, you add a second driver, they're going to charge you per day for that driver.
Yeah, I know, and it can be $10, $15 a day for a second driver.
You don't have a choice, which is why you would never tell them that anyway, because that person has insurance. So if they have a problem, you just file a claim. I mean, it's outrageous. That's unbelievable. But that's typically in a corporate contract, additional drivers, loss damage waiver, and some of the other insurance. The key, though, is that the rate is guaranteed.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. What about the other ones I said, AAA and AARP, things like that? Are they?
I don't think the AARP, I think it's a discount. I don't think it gets you extra benefits. I think AAA gets you the second driver free. If I remember correctly, I've been a AAA member for years, but I've never rented a car through them. But I think they do give you that free. But it depends. A lot of you will have it on a credit card. You've got to read the credit card language closely. Some of the really expensive traveler credit cards cover first damage waiver on the car. Most of them have second coverage, which means if your personal insurance doesn't cover it, they will.
Okay.
Which is worthless.
No, absolutely. Now, from all that we've just discussed just now, what is kind of the most important advice you can give travel advisors about that they can give to their clients about renting a car today?
Rent as early as possible. Use a company that's recommended through the travel advisor, one of their preferred suppliers. Get a confirmation writing of the reservation, which the travel advisor would certainly get and pass on to the client.
Right.
And I would also ask the travel advisor to confirm that maybe a week out. Roberta and I are going to be in Hawaii right after Thanksgiving, and I've made a reservation.
Right. I'm
going to have it followed up at least a week or 10 days before to reconfirm it. Because Hawaii is the storage where people are renting U-Hauls and all other things. And I had no trouble renting there, and I got the corporate rate.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you wouldn't pay $500 a day. I think in one of my earlier columns that I wrote a month ago, I was at PBI Airport, and a young couple came up. They paid $109 a day for a subcompact car, and we're happy to get it because they didn't have a reservation. As soon as you know what your plans are, make a reservation. Because if you go in to change the reservation, it's much easier than booking a new one.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for, you've written a column about this you can find on the Insider Travel Report, and now we've just talked a lot about these issues even further. It is an issue. We can talk about airlines, we can talk about car rentals, we can talk about hotels, but car rentals is one of those things that you often don't think about, and travel advisors sadly don't think about enough. They should rent the car, they should, for their clients, and they're going to get a commission from it. So it is lucrative if you make sure you do that, and also it's good for your client to rent it. Make sure you take that booking and give them this advice, as opposed to just leaving them out for their own devices, which, as you can see, there are a lot of pitfalls in terms of extra charges, in terms of the liability they're going to have, in terms of gasoline, whatever it's going to be, extra drivers that you got to be aware of, and also obviously the rate. So again, thank you so much for taking the time with us. And we look forward to the next topic. We're going to figure out what the next topic is, right?
Absolutely, and travel safely. And they have a lot of trips coming up.
I know, a lot of stuff. No car rentals though. It's all cruise and airline, so it should be okay. Anyway, good to see you, Jeff. And I'm James Shillinglaw for Insider Travel Report.